Welcome, everybody. My name is Lindsay Hunt, and I'm so excited to be here with Emilia Nagy, an incredible dating, marriage, and love mentor. She works with feminine leaders and women who are sensitive, who are spiritual, who really want to be deeply connected to their feminine and in sacred union with their masculine counterpart. And Emilia, it is such an honor to be here with you and to be exploring some of these.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay. I love that we're doing this.
Yes, me too. So Emilia, I know little bits and pieces of your story, but I'm so curious, how did you find your way to this type of work and this passion? I know that you are a spiritual person, that you are a Reiki healer, and that you work very deeply with the soul and the essence, and that you do this in the context of love and relationship and sacred union. And I'm curious how you found your way to this as your calling.
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy. It's so amazing that I'm here. Well, I love telling this story because I always say I'm only a master because I was such a disaster. I was such a disaster. I was dating for years and years. I dated all over the world. I dated online. I dated offline. I had short sort of serial monogamy relationships, and it was a shit show. I mean, that's just the truth, I wanted love. I wanted at that time I thought of heart, soul, mind, and body connection, right? Now I would call that a sacred union or a divine union, right? Connected on every level. And I was dating for that, and I was just not finding that. I mean, I was just meeting men who were just not present, or men who were effeminate. And my favorite pattern was taking care of them and being their mom, because then I didn't have to be vulnerable. But then I would complain that that they didn't have balls, And so from disaster after disaster after disaster, in 2016, I started taking it seriously, because I knew I wanted to be a mom. And I was, heading, I was in my mid-20s now. I'm I want to do this. This is really looking like it's going to take forever. The way it was going was so bad, right? So I'm I better figure this out, right? So then I started studying with my mentor, which is Allison Armstrong. And I started doing her courses and reading her books and other books like John Gray, Pat Allen, David Deida, a lot of different, he's just not that into you, whatever, all the books that were out there. Why Do Men Marry Bitches? That was another one. I mean, I read a lot of books, then started to work on implementing the pieces. And it was still so hard. It was still uphill. And what I realized by the end was that there were just so many pieces. What I mean by the end is when I met my hubby, because that was the end, right? That's when I stopped dating, right? And the end came when I think I really got it. I really got masculine man. What is a feminine woman? What is a healthy energy flow between a masculine man and a feminine woman? Why do women who are feminine but act masculine end up attracting effeminate men, right? Again, it's the energetics. So through this experience of studying it by doing it and being a disaster in it, I gained this wisdom, this knowledge, this experiential understanding, and on the ground, right? Experience of what these feminine, masculine energetics are. So that's what I teach in the context of love, relationships, family, marriage, dating. And yeah, that's how I got here, Lindsay.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
Disaster master, the classic.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say, Emilia, thinking about that journey, like what were some of the key shifts that you started to make to take you out of the disaster towards becoming the master that you are today?
Yeah. Well, number one, like very basic, is that men are not women and women are not men. It's a spiritual reality in terms of how we run energy in our bodies, but also how we run energy in relationship to others and the world. So there's a spiritual flow that is different in a female body than in a male body. Like that's already there on the spiritual level. And also because I'm a biochemistry nerd, I can tell you that I do a ton of research on the biochemistry of now the most recent research that I found is that our brains, like female brains, so women's brains and male brains, men's brains, there's 600 ways minimum. That's the latest research, like this year, that the brains are different in terms of shape, in terms of structure, in terms of function, in terms of how they produce neurotransmitters and how much of each neurotransmitter. And I mean, I could get really nerdy about this, but I don't want to bore the audience. But basically, that's just a fact. And we have so much mainstream messages against that pure, like, in my opinion, divine design. That's not just spiritual, but it's also biochemical. Like something's not adding up in the way the mainstream is like presenting. Other rabbit hole. But basically, so the first thing to understand, absolutely, if you want a successful relationship, in my opinion, is that men are not women and women are not men. We don't use our brains the same way. We don't use language the same way. Our vision doesn't work the same way. So many things are different. Our ears don't work the same way. Men listen for certain other things than what women listen for. And so I think that's a huge piece. I feel like that right there, if a woman just really accepted that that's true and started living her life as if that's true, now that I know that's true, who would I be? How would I act? What would I say? Right? That would already be a game changer right there.
Thank you so much for that, Emilia. And I feel like I've also come to that clarity inside of me, like, oh, wow, we are not the same as men, women. And I know for myself, and I think maybe some other women struggle with this too, we are now in a society, in a state in the world, at least for those of us, in the United States, where like a woman can do everything that a man can do. Like nothing's holding us back. Like we can dress how we want. We can identify, our gender as we want. We can do whatever we want. And I think that so much of the kind of female independence and female empowerment movement has actually in some ways pushed a lot of women or idolized the masculinization of a woman, and to kind of embody these more traditionally masculine energetics. It's not even about the role. It's not about the gender role necessarily. It's more like a woman who's stepping into a certain kind of energy flow that makes to her. And I feel in my own journey of healing, it has been this stripping away of like the masks and the illusions that, coming into that rightful relationship with my femininity and the balance of the masculine and feminine in my body, in this incarnation, in this body, it's not about conforming to gender roles. It's about like, okay, if I just start to strip everything away and I start to heal the wounding that maybe led me out of my natural essence. Yes. Natural essence is more feminine by nature. It's not the hard driving, like classic masculine way of seeing the world. And I feel like that is often misunderstood because people might think, oh, well, Emilia, you're telling women to be more, traditional or revert to a way they were supposed to be. And that's not it at all. It's about coming back to the essence of our nature and to sort of reclaim and embrace who we are in these bodies, and that we cannot ignore biology and ignore the sort of spiritual energetic flow that most naturally suits us, and that would then lead to the most natural pairing with a romantic, marriage counterpart.
Yeah, exactly. If we honored that, and if we were willing to live in alignment with that, then yes, absolutely. And then of course, if we knew how to select that, like if we knew what that looks like, which is the other piece that I teach, because that's the one that took me forever to figure out. Like it was like, well, what is a healthy masculine man, and how do I tell, and what does he do, say, and think, and how come I'm always getting it wrong? So I mean, that's a whole other rabbit hole I can go down if you have, like, if you want to ask me questions about that. But basically, yeah, that's another, because you were asking like, what are the most important things? That's another one. It's like learning how to select the right partner, learning what that is. And I always teach my clients, it's not like, do we have things in common? It's not like, does he have a PhD? It's like, it's because if he has a PhD, and you have a bunch of things in common, and you're a feminine being, like you said, you're a feminine essence, but he's not a masculine essence, it doesn't matter. He can have 1,000,000 degrees. You can have a bazillion things in common, but you're never going to have love. You're never going to have energetic flow. You're never going to have a sustainable sexual connection, or, I think Jillian calls that eros, right? Like you're never going to have that erotic, the fountain of forever, like that energy that's just flowing and circulating between the partners. And what I find in my work is anytime there's a problem, like anytime a couple comes with a problem, and I don't work a lot with couples now, but before, when I did more of that kind of work, it always came back down to the energy flow. It was always like, if they were having issues in the bedroom, the energy flow. If they were having financial fights, the energy flow. Like it always came back down to the energy flow. So that's what I primarily specialize in now, is like the energetics inside a union, the fire forever. Like what makes that last? What makes it sustainable and fulfilling and nourishes both the masculine and the feminine partner in that relationship.
Ooh, I love it. I love it.
Good.
Yeah. I am so curious to dive into some of these things to look for, like, because it sounds like that's a lot of what you specialize in is, okay, so you're a woman. I'm a single woman right now. So you're a woman, you're dating, you're exploring, you're starting to make yourself available to cultivate and receive that and explore with potential partners. How does one know, like, what are the signs to look for as a feminine woman who's seeking that divine union?
Yeah, so good. Well, the biggest thing is women look at profiles. And I just want to say, I've never once had somebody like get with somebody because of a profile, right? Like it was never about the profile. It was because she either overlooked the profile, or like it was somebody she met by accident while she was waiting for the guy that she thought she liked on the profile, right? Like, and so like I always say, it's not the profile, it's the process. Meaning like it's the journey. It's like, is he generating? Because healthy masculine men generate. And then is he generating connection? Is he continuing to generate? Is he basically, I call it like bridging the gap, right? Like we invite him in, and is he bridging the gap? Like asking questions, wanting to generate connection, wanting to generate a conversation, wanting to generate a date, And so if he's giving us generative energy over like a series of steps, like let's say on the dating app, over text, over phone call, right? Then we're likely to be on a date with like a healthy masculine man. So it's about the interactions over time, not so much the profile. It's about the energetics. Is the energy moving? Does he have more passion, more sorry, that just came out. But right, like, is he generating? Is energy moving? Is he generating in our direction? And if it's a healthy masculine man who wants a partner, he will do that. He will generate in our direction. And so I never recommend, women go shopping like an online catalog at like online dating profiles, for example. That's just a total drain, waste of time. It triggers scarcity because then women are like, oh, how come that one hasn't written me? Oh, right. And then it just goes down the drain.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love this concept of him generating.
Yeah.
And there was someone was talking to me about this old tradition, like the classic woman throwing a handkerchief to like indicate.
Yes, exactly.
And it's like, I was even biking around Central Park this morning. And I didn't do it, but there was a kind of attractive man I went by and we kept like yo-yoing with one another. And I thought about it like, what if I just, like gave some kind of an indication to sort of invite him to connect with me. And I didn't do it, but I feel like that sort of like us showing our interest or availability or indicating some kind of like, oh, hey, my attention is towards you and I'm receiving you, but then creating the space for him to come forth and like Jillian would say, like penetrating us energetically. Like, does he erect his masculine essence in kind of hearing the call, kind of like the siren call, right? Like the call of the feminine. And I've noticed for myself, part of that is feeling so juicy and connected to myself and also worthy that like, I feel like I can be and I can open myself and I can like glance at a man and or drop the metaphorical handkerchief, and that doesn't need to come like, it's not like, oh, I'm proving myself to him, but more is it, oh, I'm taking the action, like I'm getting his number, I'm asking him out, like almost like wrangling him into being I'm available and I'm interested, and like if you want to come my way, come on over my way, but I'm not going to chase you.
Yes. And so wait, let me ask you now, I'm really curious. Did you not give him that? You said I didn't do it. Like I wanted to drop the handkerchief, but I didn't do it. And of course, we don't have that, custom anymore. But I'm just so curious. Did you feel like you were like, well, what should I do instead? Because that's what most women tell me.
Yeah. Well, I thought, in the moment, I guess I was torn because part of me just wanted to like go on my ride and not like flirt or anything. But then I don't know, I thought, and I was like, I don't know, I thought I might say something like, because we kept passing each other, and say something like, tag, you're it. Like, when I passed him, I guess something kind of playful or light, but yeah, I am curious, like, do you have, what guidance do you give to women around helping women to give that indication in a way that doesn't come across as like masculine?
It's such a good question, and we don't learn this in school, and our moms and aunts don't teach us, because it's like, so where are you supposed to get it, right? But there's like a few different ways. So definitely if we comment on something about them, like, oh, I like your shoes, or I like your hair, or wow, your bike is fast, like whatever, right? Like any of that stuff. I thought my daughter came in. Any of that kind of like friendly but not wrangly energy, right? Like friendly but not also it works really well anytime if you ask for help. And even if it feels silly, like ask for directions, ask for, I see that you've got those cool bike shoes. Do they really work? Like, do you find that they help? Like, right? Oh, where did you get your bike helmet? Right? Like, it's silly. I know I sound so silly when I'm saying it, but these are things that are missing in our culture. And that's why women have such a hard time meeting men and really connecting with men. And then there's the classical one that always works, is definitely awkward to do, but it's what I call the 6-second smile. And so it would look like this. And then you look away, right? You need to give it enough time. You can't just be like, right? Like you have to really make it clear. Like you have to be like, yes, I am. Look, I am dropping the handkerchief. Yes, I am. Right? You have to make it clear, right? I practiced this so much when I was dating because I wanted to learn the energetics. Like I really wanted to understand the energetics. So this definitely works, but I want to give women this piece. The man, any man will respond as long as they are healthy, masculine, and available. So if you smile at somebody and he smiles back at you, but he doesn't approach you, and I'm not saying just glance, I'm saying do that vulnerable 6-second smile, it just means he's not available. He's either not available or he's not masculine, right? It doesn't mean you're not, something's wrong with you or anything like that. I know that's so vulnerable to do, but I dare you. Try it. You and all our listeners. It's so fun.
I love that. And I can sense, especially with a 6-second smile, like it takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to to make that kind of contact and to stay open and available to someone
for 6 seconds.
Yeah.
It's only 6 seconds, but it feels like a lifetime, and it is very hard. And that's why I always say, I always love saying to my audience and to women that I coach and teach, it's like, for true love, you don't need to be good enough. Like, you don't even need to be pretty enough. You just need to be willing enough and courageous enough. Like, that is like my favorite thing. I say that over and over because I'm like, you really don't need to be good enough. We worry, right? We're so worried, am I attractive enough and am I pretty enough? Our culture is so obsessed with how we look, and yes, have a part in it. We, of course, have to be attracted to the man and he has to be attracted to us. But what men see as attractive is a much wider range than like what the mainstream media would have us think and judge ourselves by, so we can just forget. You don't have to be good enough. You don't have to be pretty enough. You just have to be willing and courageous enough.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I feel like so much of that courage as more of a feminine being is the courage to truly be vulnerable.
Yes. That's the feminine courage. Exactly. Yeah. And that's a hard thing. That's a very hard thing for many women. We don't see that modeled, which is why I did this just recently. Partnership Summit. I invited all couples that were in unions to talk about dating because I didn't want to talk about dating for sport or dating for entertainment. I wanted to talk about dating for union, right? Dating for partnership. And it is a lost art. It's a very difficult thing nowadays for women to do. And our mainstream just doesn't give us the modeling. Like, who do you go to? Like, who can teach you about sacred relationships? Like, what movie is about that, right? Like, what song that we listen to on the radio? I mean, there's very few things, right?
Yeah. And one of the things that I feel like I was modeled and that a lot of women, younger women these days might have been modeled is of the feminine, or a version of women who are kind of leaning more into that generative energy. And
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm going to step up. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to be the one taking charge. I'm going to be the one moving this forward. And so that courage to be like vulnerable and receptive is very different from the courage that it takes like to be initiating something or generating something. And I know that for myself, I've often actually kept myself safe and avoided truly being vulnerable and showing like my feminine essence by just like, okay, I'm gonna take charge. And I think
Yes.
being brave by like taking charge, but it never yields good results, especially in dating.
Yeah, it doesn't, because then we embodying what, there's nothing wrong with embodying the masculine energy, but in the context of dating, of course, if we embody the masculine energy, then we attract the feminine energy. And then that doesn't work for us because we're actually feminine beings, essence, right? Acting in masculine energy. And I don't want people to get the wrong idea. That's like, well, if I'm a feminine energy, like you were saying, it's not a gender role. It's not like, oh, I'm the feminine energy, so now it's black or white. Like, I'm going to stay home with the kids. I'm going to cook. I'm going to clean, right? Like, that's what the feminine energy means. No, it doesn't mean that, especially not in the context of what I talk about, which is sacred partnership. It means you co-create. You're co-creating together in the feminine whatever you want your life to look like. So we're not following models. Like, we're not following like what our parents did or what they didn't do that we're like rebelling against, let's say, right? We're creating our own. How would it be? Like Alison Armstrong taught me this, right? Like, so I often live that way, and I often give that to my students and clients and like audience to think about, okay, like, how would your relationship go if you could have it all your way? Like, how would it be? Like, what would you create? And it's so cool because we can do that now. Like, I call that 5D, right? Like, that's like the sacred union. Like, that's like the next level of just like human, animal, and instinct. That's like now the human spirit, the co-creation, right? The synergy that can happen between two people. And that to me is a sacred union. It's like when you can be your human animal, like your needs to feel safe as a feminine are taken care of because your man's got you. You can trust him, but also you can be your divine feminine, and that you can co-create and like have ideas and be self-expressive and be irrational and be flowy and be woo-woo. And then, like my man's like my kind of,
Yeah.
and I don't clean the house. Like, I'm not the like cook. I don't cook, right? It doesn't mean I'm not feminine. I'm a leader. I run a business. It doesn't mean I'm not feminine, right? Like, you can still lead and lead in your feminine, right? And so, yeah, I mean, that's another, I think, crucial piece is we like catastrophize one or the other, or we catastrophize like, well, if I act submissive, then do I have to be submissive like throughout my whole relationship? And it's like, no, well, I don't even believe in submission. I know a lot of polarity coaches teach that, but I teach we don't submit to the person, we submit to the union. So we're submitting to the synergy of the union.